Well, it's that time of the month again when we bring back the AseanAffairs people, of course, part of the Morning Talk Association, and we're very pleased to be able to bring you, this time, a story about the 4 Asian economies. That's ASEAN, not Asian. I'm very pleased to welcome back to the program the Vice President of Global Marketing of ASEAN Roundup, Mr. Daniel Schwartz. Hi there.
Hello, Dr. Valerie. Pleasure to be back here again this month.
Now, listen, there's so much happening now with ASEAN since the forum here, and now, of course, ASEAN has been invited, Surin Pitsuwan, to the G8 summit. So it looks as though we're hearing a lot more of ASEAN. We've actually finally clambered up to the top of the rail. Is that right?
Yes, it's nice to see ASEAN getting together. They had planned, the Association of Asian Nations, Southeast Asian Nations had planned by 2020 to be a single market. In the recent meetings, they've all agreed to move it up to 2015. It would be really nice for the economies and the governments if that was 2009, if they actually could operate today as a single unified market.
Well, we certainly need to be doing it today, given the fact of the circumstances globally.
Yes, of course.
As far as I'm concerned, I mean, if we had it now, it'd be better than later.
Well, what happens, actually, this came out in the ASEAN Summit in the business and investment side. There was a talk about the fact that when times get bad, governments and individual nations put themselves first instead of going for the greater good. So that's a bit of a turmoil in politics, seems to play a large role.
And of course, that's not only in this part of the world, but that's generally. Now, if we look at the 4 nations within ASEAN that you've decided to talk about, the leading economies, we're talking about which 4 countries?
We're talking about Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia today.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, that when we talk about those 4 countries, it was Singapore first went into recession.
That's correct. And actually, before we even get into some of that, we'll talk a little bit about the politics of the situation. As everybody's well aware, Thailand kind of tops the list from a political issue basis, as what happened last year with the closing of the airports and the new prime minister.
Changes of government.
Changes of government. And now, last 6 days or so, he's been locked out effectively by demonstrations and prevented from going to Government House. So we're seeing similar instabilities from a political perspective. And the economy, Thailand's economy, is the 2nd largest economy in ASEAN, and it's set to enter in recession when the latest figures come out.
Now, then, if we talk, so in fact, Singapore had no political turmoil, but was first into recession. What does that tell us?
That's interesting. What it tells us is the Singaporeans recognized it first, or were the first to say, yes, we are in recession. And they were in a position where I guess they could say that and just move on, since they don't have significant political issues, and move on to creating programs to get the economy out of recession. You know, job training, investment credits, and programs like that, government stimulus.
Because they've done it both domestically and on the export potential, haven't they? So they've actually moved fairly quickly.
Yes.
Where does Thailand fit into all this? Because we've had a pretty rough time over the last year.
Well, where's Thailand? They're down. Sorry, the economy in Thailand in 2008 actually grew by 2.6%. However, that was down from 4.9% in 2007. The last quarter of 2008 was a shrinking of 6.1% over the previous years, over the previous quarter, which is the biggest contraction in memory, which is why they expect we'll be declaring Thailand in recession this year.
Any idea of the timing on that?
At the end of the first quarter, when they put out the figures, it'll officially be in recession.
So we're talking about later this month, really?
Yes, yes, definitely. And Thailand, though, what are they doing to get out of recession? They're in talks to get $2 billion, 70 billion baht, in outside 7 to 10-year loans to support domestic programs.
This is like the infrastructure projects and the like.
Correct.
And supporting the Ministry of Commerce in the way it's developing additional to agriculture, but, you know, more food stuffs and so on.
That's correct. That's correct. They need financing from the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and the Japanese International Cooperation Agency to support those programs. However, it's been constantly distracted now by the pro-toxin demonstrators, so the ex-fugitive premier, prime minister, and that's stirring up a little bit of trouble.
We've gone from the yellows to the reds.
Correct.
And as far as your forecasts are concerned, do we see any end in sight? What's the solution?
I don't know. I'm not a political pundit, so probably not a good idea to comment on that other than to wish that everything can be resolved on an amicable basis, because it's distracting the government from working on what's really important, which is getting the economy back going.
Indeed. Now, I guess another area that you looked at was Malaysia?
Sure, we can talk a little bit about Malaysia. In Malaysia, the incoming Prime Minister, Najib Razak, he's been a little bit busy fending off attacks on his government from the opposition, and they're accusing him of corruption, and they're getting ready on April 7th to have the by-elections. So again, political turmoil distracting the government from what needs to be done economically.
They don't seem to be as affected, though, when we look about job losses and so on. They've probably been, would you say, the least affected in this area, or are we just not hearing about it?
Probably a little bit of both, but I've not heard much said out of Malaysia. That's very true.
It's sort of kept in club, as it were. What is the fourth country of the growing economies in Asia that you looked at?
Indonesia. They're suffering also, but actually they grew in 2008. And unfortunately, though, in 2009, they expect the growth in exports to actually be negative. And of course, most of the ASEAN nations are driven by exports. And Indonesia has the largest economy in ASEAN, and they're getting ready for elections as well.
How's the AseanAffairs publication going?
Oh,
Bet on the bounce back?
Yes, Bet on the bounce back. That was our current issue that's on the newsstands. And talking about the comeback in tourism, you know, at least in Thailand, for sure, the hotel people I've talked to, it's down from last year, but compared to what happened after the airports closed, it was kind of a quiet high season. But they're seeing tourists, and there's plenty of people and plenty of cars in Thailand, at least what I see every day.
Well, the airport's pretty busy, so I don't know whether people are stopping to go somewhere else or they're actually coming into the country, but it looks as though that's actually on the up and up. Next publication, you're going to give us a clue? You don't have to give us the heading, but what subject are we going to be covering?
One of the key subjects in the next edition of the magazine, which is the May-June issue, is on property. And the titans of property, that'll be one of the key stories in the magazine, and probably a surprise story that's still brewing that we'll keep under wraps for now until the magazine actually comes out.
Okay, sounds as though we've got to go and do a bit of digging. Daniel, thanks for joining us again, and always pleased to have you on the program and give us an update on ASEAN and what it means to not only this region but the world. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next week.